The champagne flute slipped from my fingers as I watched my fiancée Adrienne press herself against Derek Lang in the country club's wine cellar. The crystal shattered against the stone floor, but neither of them heard it over their whispered promises and wandering hands. God, I've missed this, Adrienne breathed, her manicured fingers tracing Derek's jawline. Tomorrow's just a formality. You know you're the one I really want. Derek's laugh was low and predatory. Poor Nathan. Still thinks he's marrying America's sweetheart. If he only knew what his precious wife-to-be does when he's debugging code all night. I should have stormed in. Should have confronted them right there. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording. 3 years of marriage counseling had taught me one thing. Evidence beats emotion every time. The offshore accounts are ready. Derek continued, adjusting his tie. Once you're married, we'll have access to his company's client database. My firm can handle the transfers within 6 months. Nathan's security consulting business will be ours, and he'll never see it coming. Adrienne giggled. A sound that used to make my heart race, now made my stomach turn. He's so trusting. Gave me power of attorney last week for the wedding expenses. The fool has no idea I've already moved half our joint savings. My hands shook as I captured every word, every timestamp, every damning detail. The rehearsal dinner was happening 50 feet above us, our families toasting our future while my bride planned my destruction. I backed away silently, my mind racing. 20 minutes until I had to give my speech. 20 minutes to decide whether to explode their world tonight or wait for a more strategic moment. The answer came when I spotted Penelope Ashford adjusting her husband's bow tie near the bar. Miles Ashford was my boss, but Penelope was something else entirely. Brilliant, calculating, and if the rumors were true, deeply unhappy in her marriage. We'd graduated from MIT the same year, though we'd barely spoken then. She'd been the ice queen of our engineering program, beautiful but untouchable. Now she was the perfect weapon for what I had in mind. Penelope, I approached with my most charming smile, the one that had convinced Adrienne to say yes 3 years ago. You look stunning tonight. She turned, raising an eyebrow. Nathan, shouldn't you be with your blushing bride? She's occupied. I glanced toward the wine cellar entrance. I was actually hoping to catch up with you. MIT, class of 2010, right? I have a proposition. Her green eyes sharpened with interest. I'm listening. How would you feel about being my +1 tomorrow, instead of Miles? Penelope's laugh was sharp as broken glass. That's quite a request for a groom to make 12 hours before his wedding. What's the catch? I showed her a frame from the video. Adrienne and Derek in a passionate embrace. Let's just say the guest list has changed. She studied the image, her expression unreadable. Derek Lang. I should have known. He tried to blackmail me last year over some indiscretions, said he had photos. Did he? Nothing that would hold up in court, but enough to make Miles ask uncomfortable questions. She looked up at me with newfound respect. What exactly are you planning, Nathan? Complete social annihilation, public humiliation, financial ruin, the works. I pocketed my phone. But I need someone who understands how this world works, someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Penelope smiled, and it was predatory. What did you have in mind? Wear red tomorrow, something that photographs well. We're going to give this town something to talk about for the next decade. And what do I get out of this arrangement? Derek's head on a platter, plus the satisfaction of watching Adrienne learn that actions have consequences. She extended her hand. Deal, but I choose the dress. We shook on it, and I felt the first spark of excitement I'd experienced in months. Tomorrow was going to be spectacular. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Adrienne's face as she betrayed everything we'd built together. But anger was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not yet. This required surgical precision. At 7 a.m., I was already at my laptop, transferring files and securing accounts. If Adrienne thought she was the only one who could play financial games, she was about to learn otherwise. My phone buzzed with a text from Gavin, my best man. Dude, you ready to become a married man? Last chance to run. If only he knew how prophetic that was. Adrienne called around 9, her voice sickeningly sweet. Good morning, baby. I can't wait to see you at the altar. Last night was perfect, wasn't it? Absolutely perfect, I agreed, watching the video file upload to my secure cloud storage. Everything went exactly as planned. You sound strange. Are you nervous? Just excited to start our new life together. Hey, did you move money from our joint account yesterday? I got an alert. A pause. Oh, that. Just some last-minute vendor payments. You know how weddings are. Everything costs twice what they quote. Of course. Well, I should get ready. See you at the church, darling. I love you, Nathan. I'm sure you do. I hung up and immediately called my bank. Yes, I need to freeze all joint accounts effective immediately. Suspected fraudulent activity. The next call was to Laura Hendricks, the best divorce attorney in the city. We'd gone to high school together, and she owed me a favor from when I'd helped her husband's firm upgrade their cybersecurity. Nathan, isn't today your wedding? Change of plans. I need an emergency consultation. Can you meet me in an hour? This sounds serious. Deadly serious. And Laura, bring your camera. We're going to need documentation. Laura's office was downtown, a sleek testament to her success in dismantling bad marriages. She listened without interruption as I played the wine cellar recording and showed her the bank transfers. Jesus, Nathan. She really went all out, didn't she? Laura made notes on her legal pad. The good news is you've got her dead to rights on the fraud. The bad news is proving conspiracy will be harder. What about Derek's firm? Can we go after them? If we can prove they knowingly participated in moving stolen funds, absolutely. But that's a longer game. She looked up at me. Are you sure you want to do this today? At your own wedding? The wedding's still happening, just not the way anyone expects. I explained the plan with Penelope, watching Laura's expression shift from concern to admiration. You magnificent bastard, she breathed. This is either brilliant or completely insane. Why not both? She handed me a business card. My photographer. Tell him I sent you. He'll document everything for court purposes. And Nathan, make sure you get shots of everyone's reactions. We'll need to prove damages to her reputation were self-inflicted. By noon, I was getting dressed in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. The tuxedo fit perfectly. Adrienne had insisted on the best of everything, not knowing she was funding her own downfall. My phone rang. Penelope. I'm ready, she said simply. You're going to love the dress. How red are we talking? Scarlett O'Hara red, stop traffic red, homewrecker red. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 2. Actually, I'll meet you there. More dramatic if we arrive separately but leave together. The woman was a natural. My parents cornered me as I adjusted my cufflinks. Son, you seem different today, my father observed. Everything all right? Everything's about to be perfect, Dad. Trust me. Mom fussed with my boutonniere. Adrienne looked radiant at the rehearsal. You're a lucky man. The luckiest, I agreed, thinking of the video file that would soon make its public debut. Gavin arrived to drive me to the country club, chattering nervously about rings and vows and bachelor parties. I let him talk, my mind focused on the next few hours. The Riverside Country Club was Adrienne's choice, naturally. Old money, old families, old secrets. The perfect venue for what I had planned. You seem calm for a groom, Gavin observed as we pulled up to the valet stand. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The photographer Laura had recommended was already in position, disguised as part of the wedding party documentation team. I gave him a subtle nod. Everything was in motion. Guests were arriving in expensive cars and designer clothes, the cream of our city's social elite. Adrienne's sorority sisters, Derek's business associates, my colleagues from the tech world, all of them about to witness something they'd never forget. I checked my watch. 2:47 p.m. Ceremony started at 3. Penelope should be arriving any moment. Then I saw her. She stepped out of a black Tesla wearing a dress that defied physics, crimson silk that hugged every curve, with a neckline that suggested everything and revealed just enough to make imaginations run wild. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, and her smile could have launched 1,000 ships or sunk them. The effect was immediate. Conversations stopped. Phones appeared. The country club's perfectly manicured lawn became a red carpet, and Penelope owned every inch of it. She walked directly to me, ignoring the stares and whispers, and placed a possessive hand on my arm. Hello, darling, she purred, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Ready for our big day? The murmurs started immediately. Isn't that Miles Ashford's wife? What is she doing with the groom? Where's Adrienne? I offered Penelope my arm. Shall we go inside? I believe we have a show to put on. Lead the way, handsome. As we walked toward the club's entrance, I caught sight of Adrienne's maid of honor, Tasha, frantically typing on her phone. The gossip network was already activating. Perfect. The country club's main ballroom had been transformed into Adrienne's vision of wedding perfection. White roses, crystal chandeliers, and enough fairy lights to power a small city. 200 guests filled the gilt chairs, their attention split between the altar and the spectacle Penelope and I had just created. I took my position at the front, Penelope beside me where the mother of the bride should have been sitting. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Reverend Matthews looked confused but pressed on with his pre-ceremony announcements. The string quartet began Pachelbel's canon, and the processional started. First came the bridesmaids in their pale pink gowns, each one shooting curious glances at Penelope. Then Tasha, the maid of honor, who looked like she'd swallowed a bee. Finally, Adrienne appeared at the back of the room on her father's arm. She was beautiful, I had to admit. The dress was a masterpiece of French lace and silk, her veil a cascade of family heirloom pearls. She looked like every man's dream bride. Until she saw Penelope. Adrienne's step faltered. Her bouquet trembled in her hands. I watched her scan the room, searching for an explanation, finding none. Her father, oblivious to the drama, continued the march down the aisle. But Adrienne's eyes were locked on mine, confusion and growing panic evident even through her veil. The whispers were getting louder. Phones were coming out despite the no photography rule. Social media was about to explode. When they reached the altar, Adrienne's father placed her hand in mine as tradition dictated. Her palm was ice cold and damp with sweat. "Nathan," she whispered urgently. "What is she doing here? Where's your mother?" "Change of plans, sweetheart. I thought today should be memorable." Reverend Matthews began the ceremony, but his voice was competing with the growing murmur of the crowd. Everyone was staring at Penelope, who sat with perfect posture and a serene smile, like she belonged there. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." I barely heard the opening words. My attention was on the photographer, who was capturing every confused face, every whispered conversation, every moment of this beautiful disaster. Derek was in the third row, looking increasingly uncomfortable. He kept glancing between Penelope and me, clearly trying to figure out what game was being played. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now, or forever, hold your peace. The traditional pause that was usually a formality stretched into eternity. I could feel Adrienne's hand shaking in mine. Then Penelope stood up. "Actually, Reverend, I believe there's something everyone should see before we continue." The room went dead silent. Adrienne's face went white beneath her makeup. "Nathan and I discovered something interesting last night," Penelope continued, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "About the bride's extracurricular activities." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the club's AV system, a perk of being the IT guy who'd upgraded their network last year. "What are you doing?" Adrienne hissed. "Sharing our special moment with everyone, darling. Isn't that what weddings are for?" The wine cellar video began playing on the screens positioned throughout the room. The audio was crystal clear, thanks to the club's excellent acoustics. Adrienne's voice filled the ballroom. "Tomorrow's just a formality. You know you're the one I really want." The reaction was immediate and devastating. Gasps, shouts, the scrape of chairs as people stood for a better view. Adrienne's mother let out a wail that could have shattered the chandeliers. But I wasn't done. "There's more," I announced, advancing to the next video file. "This one's about their business arrangement." Derek's voice now. "The offshore accounts are ready. Once you're married, we'll have access to his company's client database." Derek was on his feet, pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but Gavin and two of my groomsmen blocked his path. I'd briefed them that morning on what to expect. "You bastard!" Derek snarled, lunging toward me. He never made it. Penelope stepped smoothly into his path and drove her stiletto heel into his instep with surgical precision. Derek went down hard, clutching his foot and howling. "Oops," Penelope said sweetly. "These heels are so dangerous." Adrienne was sobbing now, her perfect makeup running in black streams down her cheeks. "Nathan, please, I can explain." "Oh, you don't need to explain anything," I said, addressing the room as much as her. "The video speaks for itself, as do the bank records." I pulled up screenshots of the account transfers on the screens. $50,000 moved to Derek's investment firm just yesterday, money that was supposed to pay for our honeymoon. Adrienne's father looked like he was having a heart attack. Her mother was being supported by two bridesmaids. The sorority sisters were all frantically updating their social media feeds. "The wedding's off, obviously," I continued. "But don't let that stop you from enjoying the reception. It's already paid for, and the food's supposed to be excellent." I turned to Penelope and offered her my arm again. "Shall we make our exit, my dear?" "I thought you'd never ask." We walked down the aisle together while chaos erupted behind us. Adrienne was screaming now, a sound somewhere between rage and despair. Derek was being helped to his feet by his business associates, his face promising violence. The photographer captured every moment. As we reached the ballroom doors, I turned back for one final shot. "Oh, and Derek, you might want to call your lawyer. Mine will be in touch about the fraud charges." The last thing I saw before we left was Adrienne collapsing into her father's arms. her dream wedding transformed into a public nightmare. Outside, Penelope and I paused on the club's front steps. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and my life had just taken the most dramatic turn imaginable. "That was even better than I hoped," Penelope said, checking her lipstick in a compact mirror. "We're not done yet. This was just the opening act." "What did you have in mind for the encore?" I smiled, feeling truly happy for the first time in months. "How do you feel about a working vacation? I hear the Cayman Islands are lovely this time of year." "Are we going to trace those offshore accounts Derek mentioned?" "Among other things. But first, I believe we have a reception to crash." We didn't crash the reception immediately. Instead, Penelope and I retreated to my car in the parking lot, where I had a laptop set up with multiple screens showing social media feeds. The explosion was everything I'd hoped for and more. Yurt's Riverside wedding was already trending locally. Videos of the ceremony were being shared faster than the club's security could confiscate phones. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation on Instagram, and it had been viewed over 50,000 times in the past hour. The comments were brutal. "OMG, did you see her face when the video started playing? That red dress woman is iconic." Plot twist, the groom's revenge was better than any Netflix show. "Derek Lang is done in this town. Adrienne's sorority is probably revoking her membership as we speak." Penelope scrolled through Twitter, laughing at the memes that were already appearing. "Look at this one. They've made you into a revenge hero. When your fiancé cheats, so you turn your wedding into her public execution." The internet works fast. Speaking of fast, we should probably make our next move before they regroup. Derek's not going to take this lying down. She was right. Through the country club's windows, I could see heated conversations happening. Derek was surrounded by his business associates, probably planning damage control. Adrienne was nowhere to be seen, likely being comforted in the bridal suite. My phone buzzed with a call from Laura, my attorney. "Nathan, please tell me you recorded all of that." "Every second, plus we have professional photography." "Good, because Derek's firm just called my office. They're threatening to sue for defamation." I laughed. "Let them try. We have video evidence of him admitting to financial crimes." "That's what I told them, but they're claiming the recording was obtained illegally." I was in a public space at a private event where I was an invited guest. No expectation of privacy in a wine cellar during a party. "That's my boy. I've already filed the preliminary fraud charges with the DA's office. They're very interested in those offshore accounts Derek mentioned." "How long before he's arrested?" "Depends on how fast the FBI can trace the money. But Nathan, you might want to lay low for a few days. Derek's got connections, and desperate people do stupid things." I looked at Penelope, who was eavesdropping shamelessly. "Actually, I think we're going to be out of town for a while. Research trip." "Smart. Call me when you get back." As I hung up, Penelope was already on her phone with a travel agent. 2 first-class tickets to Georgetown, Cayman Islands. Tonight's red-eye? Yes, I know it's last minute. Money is no object. Confident I'll say yes? Confident you're smart enough to know when you need an expert in international finance. She ended the call. "Besides, I have my own reasons for wanting Derek destroyed. This is personal now." "Care to elaborate?" Her green eyes hardened. "Derek tried to blackmail me last year over some photos. Nothing illegal, just compromising. He wanted me to influence Miles to give his firm our company's pension fund management contract." "What did you do?" "I told him to go to hell, but he kept the photos, kept making threats. I've been waiting for an opportunity to eliminate him permanently." "And now you have it. Now we have it. Partners?" I extended my hand. "Partners." We shook on it, and I felt a thrill that had nothing to do with revenge. Penelope Ashford was dangerous in all the best ways. "We should probably make an appearance at the reception," I said. "Let people see us together, happy, unashamed." "Twist the knife a little deeper?" "Exactly." We walked back into the country club like we owned the place. The reception was in full swing despite the earlier drama, or perhaps because of it. Nothing makes a party more memorable than a good scandal. The reaction to our entrance was immediate. Conversation stopped, champagne glasses paused halfway to lips, and every eye in the room tracked our movement. I led Penelope to the bar, where we ordered champagne. Dom Perignon, the good stuff that Adrienne had insisted on for the toast. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my glass. "To burning bridges," Penelope replied. We clinked glasses and drank, very aware of our audience. The photographer was still working, capturing the surreal scene of the groom and his mysterious companion celebrating at his own failed wedding. Tasha, Adrienne's maid of honor, approached us with fire in her eyes. "How could you do this to her? She loves you." "Does she?" I pulled out my phone and played a snippet of the wine cellar audio. Because this sounds like someone who loves Derek Lang and my bank account. Tasha's face crumpled. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Adrienne has been planning this con for months, maybe years. The only question is whether you knew about it. She said, "Oh God." Tasha sank into a nearby chair. She told me she was having doubts, but I thought she meant normal pre-wedding nerves. What else did she tell you? She asked about offshore banking last month, said it was for a surprise honeymoon investment. I thought it was sweet. Penelope leaned forward. What kind of investment? Something about cryptocurrency and tax shelters. She said Derek was helping her set it up as a wedding gift. I exchanged glances with Penelope. Tasha, I need you to think very carefully. Did Adrienne ever ask you to sign anything? Any documents or forms? Just, oh no, oh no, no, no. Tasha's face went white. She had me witness some papers last week, said they were insurance forms for the wedding. Do you remember what company? Something international, Cayman something. Penelope's smile was sharp as a blade. She used her own maid of honor as a witness to set up the offshore accounts. That's either brilliant or incredibly stupid. Given how today went, I'm voting for stupid. A commotion near the entrance caught our attention. Adrienne had finally emerged from the bridal suite, still in her wedding dress, but looking like she'd been through a hurricane. Her makeup was gone, her hair was falling down, and her eyes were red with tears and rage. She spotted us at the bar and started marching over with murder in her eyes. This should be interesting, Penelope murmured. Adrienne stopped 3 feet away, her whole body shaking with fury. You bastard! You absolute bastard! How dare you humiliate me like this? I didn't humiliate you, sweetheart. You did that all by yourself. I just provided the documentation. Those videos were taken without my consent? That's illegal. Actually, it's not. You were in a semi-public space at an event where recording was expected, but feel free to call your lawyer. I sipped my champagne. Oh wait, you can't afford one anymore. Frozen accounts and all that. Adrienne's hand flew toward my face, but Penelope caught her wrist with lightning reflexes. I wouldn't, Penelope said softly. Assault charges would just make your situation worse. And who the hell are you supposed to be, his rebound whore? The entire reception fell silent. Even the band stopped playing. Penelope stood slowly, her full height making her tower over Adrienne. I'm the woman who's about to destroy what's left of your pathetic existence. But please, keep talking. I'm recording this too. She held up her phone, which was indeed capturing every word. Adrienne looked around the room, finally seeming to realize that everyone was watching, judging, recording. Her social death was happening in real time, and there was no coming back from it. This isn't over, she whispered. Yes, it is, I said gently. It's been over since the moment you decided to betray me. Everything that happens from here is just consequences. Adrienne turned and fled, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a white flag of surrender. The reception resumed slowly, but the energy had changed. This wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a wake for Adrienne's reputation and Derek's career. Ready for that flight to the Caymans? Penelope asked. More than ready. But first, one more thing. I walked to the bandstand and took the microphone from the surprised lead singer. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being here today. I know this wasn't the wedding you expected, but I hope it was memorable. Laughter rippled through the crowd. The bar is open, the food is excellent, and the music will continue until midnight. Consider it my gift to you for witnessing the truth. I handed back the microphone and returned to Penelope. Now we can go, I said. As we walked out of the country club for the final time, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of Adrienne's lies, Derek's schemes, and my own naivety had been lifted. The real adventure was just beginning. The flight to Grand Cayman was surprisingly peaceful. Penelope had managed to secure us seats in first class, and we spent the 5-hour journey planning our investigation and enjoying the finest champagne British Airways had to offer. So what exactly are we looking for down there? I asked as we flew over the dark Atlantic. Evidence, paper trails, proof that Derek's been using his firm to launder money through shell companies. Penelope pulled out a tablet loaded with financial documents. I've been tracking his activities for months, ever since he tried to blackmail me. You've been planning this for a while. I've been planning something. Your situation just provided the perfect catalyst. She scrolled through bank routing numbers and corporate filings. Derek's mistake was getting greedy. He's been skimming from client accounts and hiding the money offshore. Your wedding fund was just the latest score. How much are we talking about? Conservatively? About $12 million over the past 3 years? I whistled softly. That's federal prison money. That's life-destroying money, which is exactly what he deserves. We landed in Georgetown at sunrise, the Caribbean air warm and humid even at dawn. The island was beautiful, crystal blue water, white sand beaches, and enough banks to service a small country. Our hotel was the Ritz-Carlton because Penelope insisted we needed to look the part of wealthy investors. I wasn't going to argue with someone who was paying for first-class everything. The key to investigating financial crimes in the Caymans, Penelope explained as we checked in, is understanding that everything here runs on relationships and reputation. We need to become the kind of people that bankers want to do business with. And how do we do that? We spend money, lots of it, visibly. The next 3 days were a masterclass in high-end investigation. Penelope had somehow acquired a black American Express card with no spending limit, and she used it like a weapon. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, private beach clubs. We became the talk of the expatriate community almost overnight. More importantly, we gained access to the social circles where real business was conducted. The kind of places where offshore account managers gossiped about their clients over 30-year-old scotch. On our 4th night, we hit the jackpot. The venue was a private poker game at a mansion overlooking 7 Mile Beach. The buy-in was $50,000, and the players included some of the most connected financial professionals on the island. I was nervous, but Penelope was in her element. She played poker like she did everything else, with mathematical precision and psychological insight that made grown men weep. By midnight, she was up $200,000 and had charmed the pants off everyone at the table, including a man named Charles Whitmore who managed accounts for several American investment firms. You know, Charles said during a break in the action, you remind me of another American woman who was down here recently. Absolutely stunning, but her boyfriend was a complete ass. Penelope leaned forward with interest. Oh, really? Do tell. Derek something, investment manager from up north, came down here throwing money around, acting like he owned the place, but his girl was smart. She was the one actually setting up the accounts. My blood ran cold. What did she look like? Blonde, green eyes, legs that went on for days. Said her name was Anna, but she had an American accent. They opened 3 shell companies and moved about $2 million through them in a week. I pulled out my phone and showed him Adrienne's photo from our engagement announcement. That's her. You know Anna? You could say that. When was this? About 6 weeks ago, right before that big storm we had in March. 6 weeks ago, Adrienne had told me she was going to a spa retreat in Arizona with her sorority sisters. I'd even dropped her off at the airport. Did they say what the money was for? Charles laughed. They claimed it was for some tech startup, but between you and me, it looked more like they were setting up a retirement fund, the kind you access when you need to disappear quickly. Penelope caught my eye across the table. We had them. The next morning, we met with a private investigator who specialized in financial crimes. Marcus Webb had been recommended by Charles as someone who could find money that didn't want to be found. Your friends have been busy, Marcus said, spreading documents across his office desk. 3 shell companies, all incorporated within days of each other. Cayman Sunset Holdings, Caribbean Investment Solutions, and Paradise Financial Group. How much money went through them? So far? About $8 million. But here's the interesting part. Most of it came from a single source, an investment firm in your hometown called Lang & Associates. Derek's company. Of course. Okay, they've been systematically draining client accounts and funneling the money down here, Marcus continued. Your ex-fiancée was the bagman, setting up the infrastructure while Derek handled the transfers from his end. Is any of it recoverable? Most of it's still here, actually. They were planning to let it sit for a year before moving it again. Standard money laundering protocol, let it age before you touch it. Penelope smiled. What would happen if someone were to alert the authorities to suspicious activity in those accounts? The Cayman authorities take financial crimes very seriously, especially when they involve American citizens. Those accounts would be frozen within hours, and the documentation would be shared with the FBI. And if someone had video evidence of the account holders discussing their criminal activity, Marcus's grin was predatory. That would make it a very easy case to prosecute. We spent the rest of the day gathering documentation, making official reports, and setting the legal machinery in motion. By evening, all 3 shell companies were under investigation, their assets frozen, and arrest warrants were being prepared. There's one more thing, I told Marcus as we wrapped up. I want to make sure this gets maximum publicity back home. Can you arrange for the arrest to happen somewhere very public? What did you have in mind? I thought about Derek's arrogance, his sense of invulnerability, his need to be seen as successful. He plays golf every Saturday morning at the Riverside Country Club, same place where my wedding was supposed to happen. Poetic justice. I like it. That night, Penelope and I celebrated on the hotel's private beach. The stars were brilliant in the clear Caribbean sky, and the sound of waves provided a peaceful soundtrack to our victory. So what happens now? I asked. Now we go home and watch the fireworks. Derek and Adrienne are about to discover that stealing $8 million has consequences. Any regrets about destroying your husband's business associate? Penelope was quiet for a moment. Miles and I have been over for years. We just never made it official. This gives me the excuse I needed to finally file for divorce. And after that? She turned to look at me, her green eyes reflecting the moonlight. After that, we see what happens between a brilliant IT consultant and a newly single financial analyst who just pulled off the most satisfying revenge plot in recent history. I leaned over and kissed her, tasting champagne and victory and the promise of a future I'd never imagined possible. Tomorrow we would fly home to watch our enemies fall. But tonight we had paradise. We returned to a city that was still buzzing about the wedding disaster. The videos had gone viral nationally, spawning think pieces about infidelity, revenge, and the power of social media. I'd become an accidental folk hero, the wronged man who'd turned his humiliation into triumph. But the best was yet to come. Laura met us at the airport with updates that made the long flight worthwhile. Derek's been arrested, she announced as we climbed into her car. The FBI raided his office yesterday morning. They found evidence of systematic client fraud going back 3 years. What about Adrienne? Still at large, but not for long. There's a warrant out for her arrest on charges of conspiracy and money laundering. She's been staying at her parents' house, but they kicked her out yesterday when the story hit the national news. I felt a moment of something that might have been pity, but it passed quickly. Adrienne had made her choices. The country club wants to give you a refund for the wedding, Laura continued, plus they're offering you a lifetime membership as an apology for the security breach that allowed the whole thing to be recorded. Security breach? Apparently their wine cellar has surveillance cameras. The footage of Adrienne and Derek has been turned over to prosecutors as evidence. Penelope laughed. So they recorded themselves committing crimes? Multiple crimes. Conspiracy, fraud, adultery, in a state where it affects divorce proceedings. Derek's wife is filing for divorce and demanding half his assets. What assets? I asked. Everything's frozen. Exactly. She's about to discover that her husband was living a complete lie. We drove through downtown, past the building that housed Derek's investment firm. It was surrounded by FBI vehicles and news vans. A crowd of protesters had gathered, mostly Derek's former clients who'd lost their retirement savings to his schemes. There's more, Laura said. The IRS is auditing everyone who had accounts with Derek's firm. Turns out he was also running a tax evasion scheme for high-net-worth clients. How many people are we talking about? About 300 clients, total losses estimated at $25 million. I whistled. Derek's going to prison for the rest of his life. If he's lucky. Some of those clients have connections to people who handle problems differently. We reached my apartment, where I found a stack of interview requests from news outlets, book publishers, and even a few movie producers. The story of the groom's revenge had captured the public imagination in a way that surprised everyone. You're famous, Penelope observed, flipping through the offers. We're famous. You're the woman in red who helped bring down a financial criminal. I liked the sound of that. My phone rang. The caller ID showed my parents' number. Nathan, thank God you're home safe, my mother said. We've been worried sick ever since we saw the news about Derek's arrest. I'm fine, Mom. Better than fine, actually. We always knew there was something off about Adrienne, but we never imagined... How are you holding up? Honestly, I've never been better. I'll explain everything when I see you. Bring that lovely woman in the red dress. We'd like to thank her properly. I looked at Penelope, who was reading over a movie deal offer and shaking her head at the proposed budget. I think that can be arranged. The next morning brought the news I'd been waiting for. Adrienne had been arrested trying to board a flight to Mexico using a fake passport. The footage of her being led away in handcuffs was almost as satisfying as the wedding video. She'd been staying in a cheap motel under an assumed name, apparently having burned through what little money she'd managed to hide from the investigators. The woman who'd once demanded only the finest things in life was reduced to eating convenience store food and sleeping on polyester sheets. The irony was delicious. Derek's arrest had been even more spectacular. Following Marcus Webb's suggestion, the FBI had waited until Saturday morning to take him into custody at the country club, right in the middle of his weekly golf game. The video, shot by a club member and posted to social media, showed Derek being handcuffed on the 18th green while wearing bright yellow golf pants and a polo shirt. His playing partners, all prominent businessmen, scattered like startled birds when the agents appeared. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to Penelope as we watched the footage over breakfast, "justice has been served." "With a side of public humiliation," she added. "My favorite kind." The media coverage was relentless. Every detail of the conspiracy was dissected, analyzed, and discussed on cable news shows. Financial experts explained how the offshore shell companies worked. Legal analysts predicted lengthy prison sentences. Social media influencers turned the story into memes and motivational content about standing up for yourself. But the most satisfying coverage came from the society pages, where Adrienne's former friends lined up to distance themselves from her. The sorority issued a statement revoking her membership. The charity boards she'd served on demanded the return of donated funds that had apparently been stolen from Derek's clients. Her social death was complete and irreversible. A week after our return from the Caymans, Penelope and I attended Derek's bail hearing. He looked haggard and desperate, a far cry from the confident predator who'd seduced my fiancée in a wine cellar. His lawyer argued for house arrest, citing Derek's ties to the community and lack of flight risk. The prosecutor countered with evidence of the offshore accounts and Derek's history of deception. The judge wasn't impressed. "Mr. Lang, you stand accused of systematically defrauding your clients out of their life savings, then attempting to hide the proceeds in foreign accounts. You used your position of trust to prey on people who believed you were helping them secure their financial futures. Bail is denied." Derek's face crumpled as the bailiff led him away in shackles. His wife, who'd filed for divorce the day after his arrest, wasn't in the courtroom. "How does it feel?" Penelope asked as we left the courthouse. "Like justice," I said. "Finally." That evening, we had dinner at the Riverside Country Club, the same dining room where my rehearsal dinner had been held, where I'd discovered the betrayal that changed my life. The staff treated us like royalty. The story of the wedding disaster had become part of club lore, and my transformation from victim to victor was seen as the stuff of legend. "Mr. Grady," the maitre d' said as he seated us, "I want you to know that the entire staff was rooting for you. What you did took real courage." "Thank you, but I couldn't have done it alone." He nodded respectfully to Penelope. "Mrs. Ashford, that red dress will be remembered for decades. You looked absolutely stunning." "It was my pleasure," she replied with a smile that could melt steel. Over dinner, we discussed the future. Penelope's divorce from Miles was proceeding smoothly. He was actually relieved to be free of a marriage that had been dead for years. My business was booming thanks to the publicity, with new clients calling every day. "So what's next for the famous revenge couple?" Penelope asked. "I was thinking we could start a consulting firm, help other people expose fraud and corruption." "Using our combined expertise in technology and finance?" "Exactly. There are a lot of Derek Langs out there, and not everyone has the resources to fight back." Penelope raised her wine glass. "To Grady and Ashford investigations?" "To justice," I replied, clinking my glass against hers. As we finished dinner, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed everything I worked for. This isn't over." I showed the message to Penelope, who laughed. "Adrienne? Has to be. She's probably using a burner phone from jail." "Should we be worried?" I looked around the dining room at the faces of people who'd supported me through the worst and best moments of my life. I thought about Derek sitting in a federal holding cell, about Adrienne facing decades in prison, about the millions of dollars that had been recovered for the victims of their crimes. "No," I said, deleting the message. "We shouldn't be worried at all. She's already lost everything that matters. What could she possibly do to us now?" It was a rhetorical question, but the universe apparently took it as a challenge. 3 days later, I would find out exactly what a desperate, cornered criminal was capable of. But that night, in the dining room where my old life had ended and my new one began, I was simply a man in love with an extraordinary woman, celebrating the complete and total destruction of everyone who'd tried to destroy me. And it felt absolutely perfect.